I heard something big happen in the industry today. What is it?
I'd call it big. Rocket companies closed on their Redfin deal, which gives them access to about 50 million consumers a month that go onto their site and look for property. And so when you look at the Rocket companies, one of the things that I even think they would agree with is that they are a marketing machine. No one markets like Rocket. But they never had a great portal. And they might get mad at me for saying that, but I think even Varun and Doug and the team would say they never had a great portal. And I was back in Detroit last week, and I met with Doug Seabolt, who's the CEO of Rocket Homes. He's been a friend for probably 15 years at this point, and he was very excited about this deal because now they have the eyeballs they've been waiting for on the search side. So the competition with Zillow gets more fierce. Zillow still is the dominant player when it comes to search by far. I think they have like 270 million active monthly users on Zillow, so it's substantial. But the second layer of the funnel, when we talk about real estate transacting, I said this a long time ago, it's a race to own the consumer from start to finish. Mm-hmm. So let's start with, what does start represent? Start represents search. If you're looking for a home, you don't call me anymore.
Yeah, starts on your phone.
You start on your phone.
Yeah.
Zillow's been dominant at that for a long time. Now, once you start doing that, you start favoriting houses, and then you say, my lease is up in 4 months, so I got a little time. Now it's 3 months. But as you get closer, there's things like, hey, I want to go see this home. And then the next part, or at the same time, or maybe slightly before, you say, maybe I should get pre-approved. Some people want to start their home search and look at houses and then get pre-approved. Some get pre-approved and then start their home search. If you're asking me, I can't tell you which one's better. The only thing I will tell you is make sure you can buy a home. Yeah. So you probably want to get qualified. Yeah. Anyway, so
that's a crucial ingredient.
It's pretty important. But the next layer is where, when you talk about Zillow and Rocket, is where there's a big distinction. And future, the following layer is even more important, and that's with their Mr. Cooper transaction. But when you talk about pre-qual, Rocket owns that space. When you talk about mortgage, when you're saying in comparison to Zillow, and obviously Rocket is massive.
Is Zillow a competitor in that mortgage area too?
They are. They are.
Zillow
has Zillow Home Loans.
Okay.
I believe they did a little over $5 billion last year, which is a big uptick for them, by the way, because they just started building this not too long ago. But Rocket has such a head start. And for anybody that's ever been to Detroit, it's crazy. I mean, they just manufacture deals like no one else. Yeah. And there's some other great partners of ours that are very good at manufacturing mortgage too. We have really great mortgage partners like Veterans United and New American Funding and AmeriSave and Freedom. Clearly, Freedom's huge. Freedom is a massive organization who does a great job, but that's like they're really masters at the third layer, which we're going to talk about, which is portfolio servicing. Mr. Cooper, who's also a huge partner of ours, has mastered that piece, and that's where all this comes full circle. So now you have the engine of Rocket manufacturing mortgage and understanding it better than anybody when you talk about how do you activate, how do you pre-qual, how do you filter to know what deal goes to an LO and when. There's very few companies that do that at a scale like Rocket. Mm-hmm. And some of the ones I named do. But there is no competition when it comes to, right now, there's no competition from Zillow to Rocket when you talk about the loan side of the business.
Right.
And that's where the money's made. The money's made in the mortgage. The next layer where money's made is in the real estate side. And so when you have partners like a JMG or a lot of these groups have partners all over the country that they utilize opportunity to connect their clients so they have a better experience with their real estate purchase. And then once they close, that component, which I think is even a bigger deal that's going to come probably towards the end of this year, is the closing on Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper is the largest servicing company in the country.
What does that mean, servicing?
So that means when you get a mortgage, somebody services your loan. So what they're doing is they're sending you your mortgage statement. They're ensuring that you're paying on time. They're responsible for the note. They're responsible for you paying.
Okay.
And there's big money in that. And the reason there's big money in that is familiarity. So when you all of a sudden now have a good experience with your mortgage provider, when you call in, they pick up the phone. When you make your payment at post on time, when they have really good entry points to make your payment, you can do it. When you need anything, they're there. Mm-hmm. And what that leads to is brand loyalty and trust. And that's why the portfolio is so important, because when those people look to refinance their mortgage, they do it in the portfolio. And those that have, the consumers, are actively outreaching as rates go down. And you would say, well, I'm already a customer, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper's calling me. You're telling me I can save money. Let's write the loan. So when rates go down, or things like home equity lines, in the case of Rocket Money, there's avenues when you own, when it's not say own, but when you have that many consumers that you can fish from, everything opens up. Mr. Cooper's world class at that. And so their CEO, Jay Bray, who's a great guy, super bright, and his team put together a deal with Rocket about 4 months ago now, where Rocket will acquire Mr. Cooper. Now that brings what Rocket's already big servicing portfolio in, and now makes them the largest servicer of mortgages in the world. 1 out of every 5.5 households, Rocket will be servicing. Now, when you think about that scale and power, it's significant.
Yeah.
It's in the range of 9 to 10 million consumers. So it's very impactful.
Yeah. So these are big dog moves. It's crazy to hear about. Like, just thinking on one end, Zillow approaching it from like they have the software and the portal, but not necessarily the dominance in like loans.
Well, and that's
servicing.
so the second layer, Zillow's dominant in search, and look, Zillow's amazing. We have an awesome relationship with them, and I love their team. And they're really good at the front end.
Exactly,
they're really good at procurement. The second layer, though, when you talk about mortgage and servicing, they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they will. Rich Barton, the founder of Zillow, is incredibly bright. Jeremy Waxman, their CEO, is a great guy. Incredibly, like they're very smart people. But right now, that's Rocket's world.
Right.
And that is, between those two acquisitions, they're spending a little over $10 billion. So it's significant.
Yeah.
And so today marks that journey of having the portal, driving more consumers into the funnel for pre-quals, and then towards the end of this year, now having the largest harvesting data book in the world. So when you look at companies that you say, okay, like right now, in my opinion, there's a lot of forced M&A in our business. These deals are making people make decisions to be quick. Lakeview just bought Guild Mortgage. That was a big play that just happened. There's a lot of shakeup going on right now. A lot of companies that Mr. Cooper was doing servicing with in conjunction are leaving Mr. Cooper right now, like UWM, who just made a big deal with ICE because they don't want Rocket touching that stuff. They're hyper competitive against each other.
Not ICE. The ice that popped into my head.
No.
They just partnered with us.
Anybody in our business
Get
would
'em
know
out.
who that is. It's funny, somebody mentioned that today because we're working on something with them, and they're like, "You're working with immigration?" I'm like, "What?" No, thank goodness. And in any event, so there's a lot of shakeup there because now that Rocket's taking over a lot of that stuff, people that don't want to be affiliated with them, there's a lot of change going on. So behind the scenes right now in our industry, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts. You talk about Zome, which is an auction platform for Mr. Cooper. Zome powers a lot of technologies for big banks out there, banks like Bank of America being one of them. And Bank of America is probably sitting there saying, okay, do we want Rocket Mortgage to be technically the people that are responsible for our stuff? And so there's a lot of domino effect that happens with M&A like this because there's so many moving parts with huge acquisitions.
Yeah.
But it's a play that it's been announced. Step 1 is done. Step 2 at the end of the year. And there's a lot of There's a lot of integrations that need to take place. There's things that we're looking forward to, of course. And then there's things that, on the back burner of industry. Now, what do the competitors do? Where do they look to next? Do they look for, because really at the end of the day, what is nice right now, like when I say forced M&A, I think people are getting valuations that they shouldn't be getting in the depressed market that we're in. But what's happening is that people are understanding that they need to own more of their funnel. They need to, like, the consolidation piece is a real thing because you're not going to be able to compete. I think there's plenty of room for multiple companies to do very well. But when I'm talking about, like, there's not going to be space for like 20.
Yeah.
And so how do we find the right partnerships to partner with to make us both better? And for those that are the acquirer, I think they're overpaying for these assets right now based on what the future holds. Like, you don't buy companies about today. You buy companies about what they could become in the future. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think a lot is happening right now. And, whether it's a good thing or bad thing for our industry consolidation, you're not going to stop it. It's just part of business. It is what it is. But where I see things coming is there's going to be, and I know years ago when I met you, I was talking about it's all going to be from start to finish. The competition will come as these worlds collide of search, mortgage, servicing, real estate. Because the interesting thing about all of this is the best part is that the consumer will win.